The wedding ring felt like a shackle on Maria's finger. Across the table, Peter Romano wiped blood off his knuckles with a white napkin, never breaking eye contact. This wasn't a marriage. This was a transaction. Maria's father, Tony Castellano, had been a gambler all his life. Small bets at first, football games, poker nights at the local bar in Brooklyn. But small bets became big ones, and big ones became debts he couldn't pay. By the time he owed Peter Romano $50,000, Tony knew he was a dead man walking. Peter Romano wasn't the kind of man you said no to. He ran protection rackets from Queens to the Bronx, owned 3 Italian restaurants that laundered more money than they made in meatballs, and had a reputation for collecting debts one way or another. People who couldn't pay lost fingers, or worse. Tony had begged for more time, but time had run out. He sat in the back room of Romano's restaurant, hands shaking, when Peter made the offer. "I'll erase your debt," Peter said, lighting a cigar. "Every penny." Tony's eyes went wide with hope. "Yeah? What do you want?" Peter exhaled smoke slowly. "Your daughter." The words hit Tony like a punch to the gut. "Maria? She's only 22. "I'm aware." Peter's voice was cold as winter in New York. "She marries me, we do this proper, and you walk away clean. You say no, and they'll find pieces of you in the Hudson River." Tony thought about his little girl, thought about her dreams of becoming a teacher, her laugh, the way she still called him Papa. But he also thought about the men Peter employed, the stories he'd heard, the fear in his chest. He agreed. Maria found out 3 days before the wedding. She screamed, cried, threw dishes at her father's head. But Tony was broken, defeated. "He'll kill me, baby. He'll kill me, and probably you too." "So you're selling me like cattle?" Maria's voice cracked. "I'm saving our lives." The wedding was held at a Catholic church in Little Italy. Maria wore a white dress that cost more than her father's car, bought with Peter's money. She walked down the aisle alone, her father too ashamed to give her away, while 50 of Peter's associates watched. No one from her side attended. She had no bridesmaids, no family brave enough to show their faces. Peter stood at the altar in an expensive suit, his dark hair slicked back, a scar running along his jawline from some old fight. He was 38, handsome in a dangerous way, with cold blue eyes that showed no emotion. When the priest asked if she took Peter to be her husband, Maria wanted to run, but she saw 2 of Peter's men by the door, hands in their jackets. She whispered, "I do." Peter's kiss was brief, businesslike. No passion, no love, just ownership. Just ownership. The first month of marriage was hell. Peter's penthouse overlooked Central Park, all marble floors and leather furniture. It was beautiful and empty, like a museum. Maria had her own bedroom. Peter made that clear from the start. "I don't need your love," he told her. "I need you to be my wife in public. What you do in private, I don't care." But he had rules. She couldn't leave without his driver, couldn't call friends without him listening, couldn't even walk to the corner store for milk. Peter controlled everything. Maria hated him. She hated the way he conducted business at the dinner table, talking about handling problems while she pushed food around her plate. She hated his men, always watching her. Most of all, she hated herself for not fighting harder. Spoke to her. He left early for work, which meant collecting protection money, running gambling operations, doing things Maria didn't want to know about. He came home late, sometimes with blood on his shirt, and disappeared into his study. They were strangers living in the same cage. Things began to change 3 months in. Maria got sick, a terrible flu that left her bedridden for days. She expected Peter to ignore her, but he didn't. He brought her soup himself, not one of the staff. Sat in the chair by her bed. "You need to eat," he said gruffly. "I'm not hungry." "Eat anyway." It wasn't kindness exactly, but it wasn't cruelty either. Maria was too weak to argue, so she ate. Peter stayed until she finished, then left without a word. The next morning, a doctor arrived. The best in Manhattan, Peter said. Maria realized that despite everything, Peter didn't want her dead. Maybe she was property to him, but he took care of his possessions. One night, Maria found Peter on the penthouse balcony at 2 a.m., smoking a cigarette and staring at the city lights. She'd had a nightmare and couldn't sleep. For once, she didn't feel like being alone. "Can't sleep either?" she asked, wrapping a robe around herself. Peter glanced at her, surprised. They'd barely had a real conversation in months. "No." Maria leaned against the railing, keeping distance between them. "Do you ever regret it? Whatever this is?" Peter was quiet for a long time. "I don't regret things. I make decisions and I live with them." "That's not an answer." He looked at her then. Really looked at her. "Your father made his choices. I made mine. You're the only one here who didn't get a choice." It was the closest thing to an apology she'd ever get from him. "Why did you even want this?" Maria asked. "You could have just taken the money from him another way." Peter's jaw tightened. "I'm 38 years old. In my line of work, you don't live to be old. I needed a wife. Someone respectable. You were available." "Romantic," Maria said bitterly. "I never promised you romance." They stood in silence, the city humming below them. Finally, Peter stubbed out his cigarette. "You should go back to bed." But Maria didn't move. "Were you ever married before?" Peter hesitated. "Almost. Long time ago. She left when she found out what I really did for a living. Smart woman." "And you just stayed alone?" "In this life, everyone leaves or dies. Easier to be alone." Maria saw something in his eyes then. Not warmth exactly, but a crack in the armor. Peter Romano, the brutal enforcer who broke bones for money, was lonely, just like her. Slowly, things shifted. Maria started joining Peter for dinner instead of eating alone. They didn't talk much at first, but gradually, conversations happened. Peter asked about her life before, her dreams of teaching. She asked about his childhood in Brooklyn, his mother who died when he was 12. "My father ran numbers for the Gambino family," Peter said one night. "I grew up in this life. Never knew anything else." "Did you want something else?" Maria asked. Peter shrugged. "Doesn't matter. This is who I am." But Maria wondered if that was true. She started noticing things. How Peter never raised his voice at the household staff. How he donated anonymously to the church where they'd married. How he visited an old woman in Queens every Sunday. His mother's sister, he finally admitted. He was brutal in business, yes, but he had layers, complications. 6 months into the marriage, everything changed again. One of Peter's rivals, a man named Sal Torino, decided to make a move. He sent men to the penthouse while Peter was out. Maria was alone, reading in the living room when they broke in. 3 men, armed. One grabbed her by the hair. "Where's Romano?" he demanded. "I don't know," Maria screamed. They tore the place apart looking for something. Documents, money, she didn't know. One of them pressed a gun to her head. "Call him, now." Maria's hands shook as she dialed Peter's number. He answered on the second ring. "They're here," she whispered. 3 men. They have guns. The man ripped the phone away. "Romano, you've got 30 minutes to get here, or your pretty wife gets a bullet. Torino sends his regards." Maria had never been so terrified in her life. Peter arrived in 20 minutes. Maria didn't know what happened in the hallway. She only heard gunshots, screaming, then silence. When Peter burst into the apartment, he was covered in blood, none of it his. His eyes were wild, frantic. "Maria?" She ran to him, and for the first time since their wedding, Peter held her, really held her. His arms wrapped around her tight, his heart hammering against her ear. "Are you hurt?" he demanded, checking her for injuries. "Did they touch you?" "I'm okay," she sobbed. "I'm okay." Peter's hands cupped her face, and Maria saw something new in his eyes. Fear. Raw, genuine fear. "I thought I lost you," he said hoarsely. And then he kissed her. Not the cold, dutiful kiss from their wedding. This was desperate, full of relief and something that felt dangerously like love. When they pulled apart, Maria was shaking. "Peter?" "I'll kill Torino for this," Peter said, his voice turning hard again. "I'll burn his entire operation to the ground." "No!" Maria grabbed his arm. "No more killing, please." Peter looked at her like she was crazy. "He tried to kill you. And you saved me. Isn't that enough?" For the first time in his life, Peter Romano didn't have an answer. The war with Torino lasted 3 weeks. Peter handled it quietly, strategically, dismantling Sal's operations piece by piece until the man fled to Miami. No more bloodshed than necessary, for Maria. When it was over, Peter came home exhausted. Maria was waiting in the living room with coffee. "It's done," he said, collapsing onto the couch. Maria sat beside him, closer than she would have dared months ago. "Thank you for not becoming a monster?" Peter's laugh was bitter. "I am a monster, Maria. That's what your father married you to." "You're not just that." Maria took his hand, scarred knuckles and all. "Monsters don't change. You're changing." Peter looked at their joined hands. "You make me want to be better. I don't know what to do with that. Maybe just try." A year into their marriage, Maria and Peter had something neither expected, a real relationship. They still fought. Maria's fire never died, and Peter's stubbornness was legendary. But they also laughed, talked. Peter started coming home earlier. Maria started touching him without flinching, a hand on his shoulder, fingers brushing his. One night, after a charity dinner where they'd played the perfect couple, Peter found Peter on their balcony again. "You were good tonight," he said. "Almost looked like you didn't hate me." Maria smiled. "Maybe I don't. Not anymore." Peter stepped closer. "Maria, I need to say something." She turned to face him, heart racing. "I know how this started," Peter said carefully. "I know I took your choice away. If you want to leave, if you want a divorce, I'll arrange it. You'll be taken care of, protected. You'll never have to see me again." Maria stared at him, shocked. "You'd let me go?" "Yes." Peter's voice was rough. "Because I love you, and you deserve to choose." The words hung in the air between them. Peter Romano, the man who controlled everything, was giving her freedom. Maria had spent a year hating him, then understanding him, then something more. She thought about leaving, about the life she could have had. Then she thought about the life she had. Not complicated, difficult, but real. "I choose to stay," she said softly. Peter's eyes widened. "Maria, I choose you, Peter. Not because I have to, because I want to." When he kissed her this time, it felt like a beginning. Wow, what a journey from hatred to love. Did you love this story? Give this video a huge thumbs up and let me know in the comments. Would you have stayed with Peter or left? Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss our next story. We post intense love stories like this every week. Share this video with someone who loves mafia romance stories. They'll thank you for it.